81. Ewurabena Aubyn, 34,090. Total valid vote, 67,917. Rejected vote, 411. Total votes cast, 68,328. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's it's been a long battle.
So that's the declaration officially as done by the Electoral Commission a few minutes ago. Ewurabena Aubyn of the NDC declared as MP-elect for the Ablekuma North constituency. Safe to say, Kamini, this is the second time she's been declared as MP-elect. This time without any chaos or the back and forth that we saw characterize that first declaration on the 9th of December, which led to the Electoral Commission now nullifying that declaration that has led to this almost over 7 months of this constituency not having representation in this 9th Parliament up until now. This declaration we saw was with no chaotic situation as we saw characterized in the previous, and for now we haven't seen any contestation of the results as declared so far, is it not?
Indeed, it would look like it's a good thing that we've been able to bring finality to Ablekuma North parliamentary elections.
Yep.
Now there is an MP-elect.
Absolutely. And that's the picture we see right there, reflecting exactly what happened just a few minutes ago. Now, with the pockets of violence and the chaotic situation that we saw characterizing the election at some of the polling stations, was largely peaceful, because we single out the chaos in about 3 polling stations, but this election today took place in 9 polling stations. I beg your pardon, 19 polling stations. 19 polling stations, and the polling stations that recorded the violence or the chaos that we reported earlier, it's about 3 of them. Now, what we're waiting for is the police's own verdict of their investigation into the violence that characterized this election today and the actions they have taken so far. What is refreshing, Kamini, is that the police officer whom we captured on video, who slapped this journalist, has been interdicted. That's the swift action from the Ghana Police Service. The Ghana Journalists Association has also addressed the press conference on this, condemning this. Phyllis Kwatiofosu, the Minister in charge of Government Communications, his deputy, have all put out statements to that effect. We've had the MPP as well condemn this particular act as well. So it's good to know that there's been some swift action taking in this regard going forward. And as we're seeing, the indication from the Ghana Police Service is that investigation is going to continue into the chaos and the violence that characterized the election in these 3 polling stations. But, Kemini, the picture is quite clear now. In terms of the numbers, we started tracking it. We knew exactly how things were going to play out based on our provisional results that we got and the projections that we made, and it clearly came to pass as we expected, is it not? With this 209 difference of the votes between Ewurabena Aubyn and Nana Ekuye-Afriyie, a slim victory, but that's insignificant. The most important thing is that Ewurabena Aubyn has been elected as MP-elect, but Nana Ekuye-Afriyie, question is she going to go again? Because 2016 Member of Parliament, she's won the primaries for the MPP last year. What's next for her?
Absolutely. And Alfred, the numbers tell us a lot of stories. Remember, it's the first time the NDC is winning that seat. But when you compare the MPP's winning numbers to the numbers they are winning by, they are losing by today, I mean, it bothers anybody who cares about the fortunes of the NPP in the Ablekuma North constituency. Let's not also forget that while we were doing the permutations and the projections of how this could end, at the time we had seen 17 polling stations. There were 201 vote difference between the 2 candidates, which means that between then and the 2 extra polling stations, we are seeing an increase in votes of about 8 for her, which means that Anekria did put up a fight. Despite, I mean, albeit very small, you know, a very insignificant one for her, because then we can't really compare the victories they've had in the past to what we are seeing today. And again, it also tells a story. The MPP has a lot of work to do. It more or less re-emphasizes the loss they suffered in the 2024 elections. The people have spoken again and say, you lost the election because you didn't play right. You lost the election because you were not in the game right. And we're seeing it again. Whether or not they flip-flopped, if it was, I wouldn't say a formidable candidate, but if it was a strong campaign, if it was a campaign that the people wanted, they would have won this election. And so I hope that, you know, that story also sits well with the MPP, and they are working around the clock.
But Kamene, it's instructive that you make this derivation. Very, very important. Because if you backtrack into 2016, Nanekye Friye, who is the candidate today, won that election with 54,489 of the valid vote cast. That's more than 60% of the voter population in that constituency. Fast forward to 2020, Sheila Battels won it for the MPP with the same nominal figure of over 54,000. So that's been the track record of the MPP, at least from 2012 that we started tracking. If you go back a bit into the year 2000, they've been winning this constituency with not less than 60% or more of the total valid vote cast in Ablekuma North. That's how much of a stronghold that constituency was for them. So if you look at how things played out in 2024, even with the contested results by both parties, the MPP held the view that they won with 414 difference. That is a clear departure from the trend from 1996 up until the year 2020. But then the margin of victory for Ewurabena Aubyn, per the analysis, may also be looked at as the MPP not wholly losing that stronghold. Because if you look at other strongholds that they lost in 2024, let's look at Katie Hammond's constituency as well, Adansi Asqua constituency, right? They lost with a greater margin as against the constituencies that we are seeing right now in the Greater Accra region, that where there are strongholds that they are losing, right? But so it gives you an idea of two things: the NPP picking up their pieces and then re-strategizing to see how 2028 will be, and the NDC working hard to increase their margin of victory in 2028. Those are the two things that will be playing out in the minds of these two political parties.
I absolutely agree with that. So let's look a bit more at the numbers. Ebenezer Nimakonyako is founder of EN Analytics. He's also an election researcher. We've been talking about the data we've been collecting so far in the elections. Now we know the official numbers. Were you expecting the margin to be this? Remember that prior to now, there was a 48 vote difference between the two candidates. The NDC candidate was able to flip it and even increase it to 209. Any surprises there?
No, not at all. You know, I told you that the outcome that I was expecting was a toss-up, which is a close contest. And so irrespective of Ewurabena winning, I mean, the margins are small. So let's take this number, the difference of 209, in context of the entire constituency. And you realize that it is very minute. So that is how I want us to have a look at the results. But
we should look at all 281 polling stations?
Polling stations, not necessarily this.
Just the 19?
No. So the margin should be compared with the overall constituency. And so I believe that what is not clear in the data and to both Ghanaians is the rejection of the NPP by Ghanaians, like the electorate in 2024, is that they didn't like the Nanado's administration, or they didn't like the NPP.
I see. What do the numbers tell you in answering that question?
No, because that is why I say that I'm a bit disappointed in the NPP not preparing fully for this election, because that would have given us a sense of a prepared party, gone through it fully, and then this is the result they got. And then that would have given us information about, okay, if you have gone in 100% with all your resources and you've gotten this result, maybe previously you were at 49, and then you have now moved to, let's say, 52, then you realize that, okay, you are making progress, and that what Ghanaians voted against in 2024 was more or less the Nanado's administration. But our supporters are still behind us, working with us. They want us to reform and shape the party, but they didn't like maybe the last 4 years of the previous administration. And then you can make an informed decision based on that. Now, because that particular opportunity has been missed, the only opportunity left is now the Akwatia. And so they have to go in Akwatia, and Akwatia will tell us the full story. That whether, as we speak, is it that the NPP didn't like the Nanado's administration, or the voters didn't like the Nanado's administration, or it is the party itself that, as at now, they still don't like its structure. So that distinction has to be made, and unless that distinction is made, the party will not be able to plan ahead and strategize. For all you know, the voters were not happy just with Nanado's administration and not the party itself. So now that maybe Nanado is off the scene, they will be willing to come in and vote. So that's why I said that I was a bit disappointed that they sent that mixed signals and it didn't go into, because
So the mixed signal affected.
Yes, I was really looking for, if they had gone in full throttle, what would be the outcome of their performance?
Well, but then again, Ewurabena Aubyn, despite the party's position, from the very moment that the party had indicated that they will not take part in the election rerun, she had made clear she will be part. And so obviously, from the numbers, she is a formidable candidate. She was still able to pull over 32,000 plus. We can yes say that the over 32,000 plus came from the 262. But you also, add that, let's look at the entire 281, right? We can say that she was a formidable candidate in this election, considering that we are not even seeing up to 500 vote difference between the two of them. So she was a formidable candidate. Can we then confidently and reliably say that it's because the party flip-flopped? Do the numbers tell you that? It's because the party flip-flopped that she couldn't make any gains in the 19 polling stations? Again, we're looking at the bigger picture of the 281 polling stations.
I think if NPP had backed her candidature or backed her campaign, I think she could have won.
For the 19 polling stations?
Yes, she could have won. Because let's not forget, Ablekuma North is historically an NPP constituency. And
NDC.
So, NPP. Ablekuma North is an NPP historically. Okay. So apart from 1992 and this time, that is the only time period that the NDC has won.
Right.
Okay. So you are looking at a constituency that has historically voted and served the NPP very well over the years. And so it has to, the party should have just gone in, marshaled the resources, and then see what the outcome will be. And I am 90% confident that if the party had done that, I mean, the result, even if it could have been lost by the NPP, I mean, maybe just 5 or something, but I was more confident that if they had done that, it's more likely the NPP candidate would have won.
Well, at this point, it's impossible and it's in the past, right?
Exactly.
I should have known. Isn't a should have known situation at this time. But if we look at the 281, while you make the review that the 281 may tell a different story from just looking at the 19 polling stations. Is there anything within the 19 polling stations that gives you the impression that, look, if the party backed Ewurabena, she could have pulled more numbers? Were there certain areas that are predominantly or historically NPP? Were certain polling stations that should have voted MPP didn't vote MPP? What are you looking at to make that conclusion?
And so elections are all about enthusiasm. So the conclusion is based on the fact that if your supporters or people who vote for you are not enthused, and you are not talking about any other, you are talking about Greater Accra, where the populace are very educated, and you cannot just take them for granted on your messaging. And so they were looking for a concerted and coherent way of communicating to them, telling them that we are solidly behind our candidates, and we want you to come in your numbers and come and vote. Even when the court, threw out their petition, within that short period, there was way that they could have just gone about, throwing in a few adverts, telling their supporters that they are on the ground, they should come and vote, and then see the outcome. And I personally believe that this could have flipped the elections in that direction. So enthusiasm was not there, and that is what we see.
But you see, the point is that I remember in the 2024 election, the assumption was when there is voter apathy, it favors the opposition. When there is a increased voter interest, then it favors the incumbent government. Why didn't that apply in this case?
No, because that assumption holds on election cycles.
Okay.
Okay. So that is why we have every 8 years, virtually there is a change in government, because the voter apathy tends to happen at the 8th year of the incumbent party. So it's like Ghanaians will start with you, then after 8 years, they sort of get bored with you. And so in fact, that is the 8-year cycle rule is the most predominant factor in determining election outcomes in Ghana. And up to date, it hasn't failed. So what I'm trying to say is that this is not an 8-year cycle rule for which the electorate will say that even though turnout is low, it's going to favor the opposition.
Right.
What we see is that it is just, and we shouldn't take our eyes off the fact that President Mahama hasn't done that badly in the time that he came in. Okay, if you poll averagely people, both whether MPP or NDC or independent, they will tell you that there is a sense that, economically, if things have not improved, they have not gotten worse. Okay, for most people, at least you have the strengthening of the currency, you have inflation easing downwards. And so there are a few indicators that point to an environment which is more favorable to the incumbent government. And that is what we see translate. So even though we say that when there is apathy, it favors the opposition. One, we are talking about the election cycles. But secondly, we see that the economic environment now is not too disadvantageous to the.
And we could also say that this is a linger on or overflow from the 2024 election, because then again it was just a rerun of 19 polling stations.
Yes, so because like you see, when there is a shock, it takes some time for the effect of that shock to recede. So what happens, 6 months or 7 months, it's just very close to 2024. And so it will take, the data will correct itself over some time, but it is not within a very short time. So from 2028, we see that some of the constituencies that MPP lost, they will recoup some. In 2032, they will recoup another batch until there is a reset of the data, and then we move forward. But currently, as we sit here, the election environment is more tilted, favorable towards the NDC. And so we are still in that curve or in that mood where the electorate have not, most of them have not gotten over, okay, maybe through the economic conditions and how things were in the last 4 years of the NPP's reign. And so we are still in that, a bit of that environment. And so it will take some time for the lingering effect of the 2024 election to completely dissipate.
I see. And then, you know, it's very easy to look at the numbers and say, oh, the NDC won. But how strong is the win for the NDC? Can they get comfortable? What are you reading? What does the number tell you about the nature of the win the NDC has at this time?
No, in fact, this seat can easily flip in 2028. Okay, because as I said, we should just remember 2016 when Nana Addo came in and that pool. You realize that in 2020 there was a drawback, and so most of the seats that NPP has lost in 2024, which were within the toss-ups, they are likely to recoup a sizable percentage, depending on how they campaign and then organize the party. But I strongly believe that in 2028, they will be able to reorganize, they will claw back a percentage of those numbers, and then presidential is too early, okay, for 2028. I mean, per the data, it doesn't favor the NPP in 2028, but there will be one thing is for...
But I mean, 3 years is a long time to change that.
No, based on our election cycle and data, okay, first of all, elections are our cycle, as I said, the number one determinant is the 8-year rule. So that favors the NDC, okay? And then we are also looking at economic conditions. If the current administration can work and maintain probably what they are doing, I think it will inure to their benefit. But one thing I can assure you is that I think most people in NDC think that the current environment will continue for a very long time. But I can tell you that 2032, I mean, we will be here. It will be a very, very competitive race.
2032, that sounds so far off.
It shouldn't be far.
So far off in the future. But when you look at it in terms of elections, it's like perhaps in the next 2 years. Very well. I'm told that I have been joined again on Zoom by Professor Smasapon and Dr. Asante Ocho. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We'll hear from you shortly. But I'll hand over to the gentlemen on the other side, Alfred and Joseph. Well, Alfred and Blay. I said that right. Yeah. It's not like Joseph is not your name, but you prefer to be called Blay. No. Right, Alfred and Blay on the other side. They'll take us through some numbers, and then we will initiate Dr. Asante Ocho in the conversation and bring back Professor Smasapo.
No, it's interesting.
I mean, Alfred, there's a point that Kemini made in the conversation.
The point about you being Joseph?
Not at all. Okay, I mean, the point about the numbers. I want to stay with the numbers. I mean, and Eben makes the point rightly about how there's a general trend with the 8-year cycle and the possibility of not being able to use the voter turnout necessarily to explain what has happened. I mean, there's a very fascinating story that the numbers tell from the election outcome is the fact that even though the NPP holds the view that they may have won the initial election by a little over 400 votes, 441, they tell us.
Yes.
The story that the numbers...
414, yeah.
414. The story that the numbers over the period tell us is to the effect that the NPP significantly was losing control over that particular seat. And I want you to, I mean, I'm sure you're going to come, you come and join me right here. I mean, let's do that on the wall right now.
I see this zigzag in there.
Zigzagging, I mean. So this one here, the blue line, line is the NPP, and the green army is the NDC, that of the NDC. I want us to start with 1996. Eben made reference to 1996. because that is the first time the NPP participated in the parliamentary elections. You know, they had boycotted the 1992 parliamentary elections. It's the first time that we didn't vote for the presidential and the parliamentary at the same time. Presidential first, then we decided that, well, we're not going to participate. They are not going to participate in the parliamentary anymore. So this is what happens there. Kwamina Bartels picks up the seat for the New Patriotic Party, 35,747 votes. Mind you, MPP did not win the national elections.
Absolutely.
Jerry John Rawlings of blessed memory won to get his second and final term. Now you look at this number, you see it quite clearly that 61.09% of the votes, whereas the NDC just gets 34.54% of it. So it shows quite clearly that the NPP is having a control, and it plays out in subsequent years. You go over to the year 2000, the year that Kufuor, the Asiaho campaign and all of that plays out. The Gentle Giant wins the presidential elections, but over there at Ablekuma, then Ablekuma constituency, before the divisions takes place, we must emphasize. But that notwithstanding, Kwamina Bartels picks it up again. You see 34,508. I just want to come back a step back so that you see what happens. 35,747, a slight drop, 34,508 there. But the story doesn't change any time soon. I mean, the MPP is still performing well. And when we go over to 2004, you see the MPP improving the numbers. They now get 55,999. The percentage-wise also is also gone up. And so at this stage in time, it looks like it's all.
This was in 2004.
This is 2004.
Okay.
I mean, it all looks good for the MPP at this point in time. But when we go over to 2008, where Joe Appiah pops up, and you see what happens there, there's 45,630. There's a bit of a drop. But when we go subsequently, you see that the fortunes of the MPP improves. They go back to the 53,000 region again. If you look at 2008, we know that that's the year that they lost the presidential election. That's the year they lost the presidential election. Former President John Ajay Kufuor had finished his final term over there.
But it's interesting because, you see, in 2008, even though we saw a dip, which was consistent with the party's fortunes because they lost the presidential there. But then again, they maintained their hold on the constituency, but this time with a lower margin of victory. But then, even though they lost the 2012 elections to John Dramani Mahama in his first term as president, you saw the party's fortunes increase in terms of the nominal values of the total valid vote cast there from the 2008, the 45,000. Now we are seeing it go up to 53,115. Now, what that tells you is that when you look at the trends as well in other strongholds of the NPP, whenever they win an election, you'll see a corresponding increase or appreciation in the votes within their strongholds or the various constituencies that they have a hold on. And that's quite clear, rightly so, because look, when the momentum is high and then you are having in the 8-year cycle, you see it playing out in this zigzag that we are seeing right now.
And you expect it to play out in your strongholds.
Absolutely. So look at what happened in 2016. And let's tell that story in 2016.
I mean, you go to 2016, you see that the MPP's numbers now goes to 54,698. The NDC still within the same region where they've been so far. And so it's a seat that clearly the NDC, they are not doing too well and they are struggling to make any progress over there. But when we go over to 2020, you see what happens there.
There's a dip. There's a slight dip. But you see, in 2016, this is where Nana Ekuafo won this seat.
Defeats Joe Appiah and takes over.
The incumbent MP who had seen an appreciation of his vote in 2012.
Yeah.
So Nana Ekuafo is no mean a candidate in terms of the persona, the influence, the impact, and then at least the history that she has as a former member of parliament for that constituency. Because if these numbers are anything to go by, it's no mean feat. 54,698 in 2016.
And you know what she does subsequently that shows how much of a formidable candidate she is? She lost to Bartels, Sheila Bartels, the daughter of the MP who had done 3 terms, Kwamina Bartels.
A key figure in the MPP, and still is.
It still is. I mean, Sheila Bartels serves 1 term, Nana Ekuafo comes back and wins once again.
Absolutely.
I mean, that should tell you that she's a formidable candidate, like we are saying. And it also shows again that the NPP is doing well by way of its numbers.
True.
But if you compare 54,544 You come over there, you see there's a bit of decline.
There's 155, 160 vote difference
Exactly.
there in the two. But could that be as a result of the changing candidate? Could that be that Nana Ekuafria is indeed a solid figure on the ground for the party? And also, that translates into the question we've been asking since morning. If the NPP, as a political party, had made up their minds, and then also as a solidified, a solid front, gone into this election as a consolidated front, would the fortunes of Nana Ekuafria have been different from what we are seeing now, based on the history that we have just pointed out?
I mean, based on the history that we are pointing out, I mean, the logical assumption that one will make is if you are going to settle at 2020 and you are doing 54, if the margin of decline that we are seeing, then ordinarily the MPP should still win.
True.
But then 2024 election tells a completely different story.
Absolutely.
Because it was the year that a seat like Dom Kwabenya was lost. Beyond Dom Kwabenya, there are areas, even in the Ahafo area, the Puno area, seats that ordinarily...
In the Ashanti region.
Seats that are ordinarily MPP seats, all those seats were lost. And so the point that the Ablekuma story tells you, first and foremost, we have to isolate Kwame Nabattles. He did 3 terms. We know Joe Appiah did 2 terms. We know that Ekuafria did 1 term, then Sheila Battles did another term. The question that the MPP in the soul searching will have to ask itself was, well, potentially, did we have to move from Nana Ekuafria to Sheila Battles and then back to Ekuafria again? Should we have stuck with Nana Ekuafria, do a second term, and potentially see what could become of a possible 3rd term as Kwame Nabattles had done? Well, they didn't give Joe Appiah that opportunity, but Nana Ekuafria at least made some gains over there. And so there's a lot for the analysis for them to make. But the point being made was that there's been a decline. And that is how come, even in their own assessment of an initial victory in the 2024 polls, they have less than 500 vote margin. And so going into it, we take out 19, and that brings them down to just leading by 48.
True.
Then you have 48 votes that you are holding in your back pocket, and already you are not clear in your mind whether you want to fight over the 6,800 and whatever that is outstanding, or you don't want to fight over it. So, well, you say that, well, I'm not going to fight over it.
There's another narrative that the MPP has been holding on to since, that their people did not come out to vote in 2024, if you recall. Even with the presidential, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been consistent that the NDC only won the 2024 presidential election because NPP supporters did not come out to vote. So the voter apathy played more to the disadvantage of the MPP than the NDC. I mean, but then again, that's a fundamental point that really has been contested over the period. So we, if you then translate that same narrative they hold, you hear Nana Ekuafria indicate that even prior to today, that the only reason why there was that close margin of 414 for her was because NPP people didn't come out to vote in that constituency, and that the voter apathy that played at the national scale was what also impacted on the MPP in the Ablekuma North constituency.
I mean,
that's contentious.
I mean, they are very contentious, and the answer that any political analyst will make to anyone who throws about the issue of voter apathy is, for example, when you say that the MPP people didn't come out to vote. The question that they will ask you is that, I mean, how about the ordinary Ghanaians who participate in the voting as well? Because the fact being that the result is consistent across the country. We see across the country John Mahama picking votes in areas that ordinarily he's not picking. We see MPP, NDC candidates picking up seats in areas that they're not picking. So the question that you ask yourself is that, why did your members not show up to vote? Because your members are the ones who were saying they want to break the 8.
Absolutely.
And so there are those who will tell you that rather, no, they reject that argument, and they rather tell you that historically the political parties basically start the elections 40% apiece. What makes the difference are the new voters and the floating voters.
And what happens next?
And they are the ones who determine what happens. So they will reject the argument about the voter party and tell you that, well, that's not what played out in this particular instance.
But you see, Ewurabena Aubyn got into today with one message about the party solidly behind her. The MPP came into today with a relatively confusing position that the party says, look, we're not taking part in this election. The candidate says, well, you know what? I know my strength. My mettle in this constituency is uncontestable. It's one that I can prove. And so even though the party has officially decided to boycott this election today, I'm going in and I'm going to make a point. Has she proven a point? I would say yes. on any day, because if the candidate, per her own strength and knowing that she has an influence in this constituency, essentially decides to go contrary. In fact, she defied the party's orders and went ahead to contest. We saw the last minute, show of support for her by, these persons who were seeking to lead the party as
more or less
flag
like
bearer.
individuals, not a party as a unit.
We never saw any national executive member of the party show up in this constituency between yesterday and today to express support for her. But then we've seen some of them on television now talking about what had happened and so on. But then again, the fundamental question is, who takes the fall for the fall of the MPP today?
I mean,
is it Nane Kuai for defying the party's orders, or the national executive of the party for not throwing their support solidly behind her? It's one that the party would have to answer.
I mean, one person I'm very sure is not going to take the fall or want to take the fall will be a Kuai, because she's going to look at the numbers and tell you that, well, even without the machinery flip-flopping and not being consistent with all of that, I lost by just 209 votes. She's going to look at it and tell you that,
absolutely,
if maybe you had backed me, we could have easily picked up that seat. But what does it even mean to even boycott the election? Because she was going to be on the ballot anyways.
Absolutely. And the people were going to vote for her anyway.
And if the boycott was anything to go by, then logically it would have meant that the MPP would have lost the seat anyways. And so then that comes back to the point that, well, the entire party structure, and that is some of the matters that will be put in, coming across the desk will be put into the political analysts and the commentators will be joining us subsequently about the point about who is in control of the MPP at this point in time. Because
the general secretary?
I mean, but
because the chairman is indisposed, we know that.
Yeah, but does he, I mean, not control in terms of the legality or the officially, but in actual control to whip everyone in line. Because someone ought to have taken the decision that, well, we are not contesting. And that person banged his hopes on a legal action that failed.
Absolutely.
Did that person take a fresh decision to decide that, well, despite what has happened, we are going to try and win this seat? Because now when we go over to 2024 now, the results now, you see what has happened. The MPP getting 33,881. The MPP losing the seat now, and the NDC just winning by 34,090, 50.15%.
And that tells you another story, that this 209 different votes in favor of the NDC candidate, Ewurabena Aubyn, clearly tells you the direction that this constituency is taking. That's the same story that we can play out when it comes to what has happened in the Ghpage constituency as well, because the NDC candidate, that is Faustina Akolgo, won that constituency with a little over 51,640, I think, thereabout. And then also Michael Quay Jr. followed with some 50,477, a difference of about, I think, 1,160 of the votes on that day. Now, that is not a margin that the NDC will be comfortable with and say that they have a hold of that constituency. There's going to be a lot of work going into 2028. You can say the same for the Ablekuma constituency as well. 209 vote difference is not one you're going to sleep over. You've got a lot of work to do to solidify your hold of that constituency if you want to keep it for 2028.
I mean, unfortunately for these two individuals as well, their names have not appeared on the appointments so far. True. I mean, at least she's now even going into parliament, and so she's not going to make it on that list. The point being made is that we know that when you're closer to power by way of being a part of the executive, your lobbying influence goes up because you need resources. I want to stay with Ghpage, for instance. Ghpage, the Kwabenya area, the roads are terrible.
Yeah.
She needs
there's
resources.
Some construction going on, you see
in
that.
some parts of it. In some parts of it.
The one that leads to the atomic roundabout.
Roundabout, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then also the that's one that goes into some other areas. There's some estates in there as well.
Yes,
that
but still there are some parts like the areas around their Boom Junction, those areas towards where the school is, the university, Ashesi. You know the Brekusu Road.
Yeah, Brekusu Road.
Yes, you know that area.
But that road was awarded.
I mean, but the construction is not taking place. The
3 years
construction is
ago.
not taking place. The construction is not taking place. And so the roads are terrible. And so the NDC, and it's a story that you can tell with so many other constituencies. Even if you pick a constituency like the Jomoro constituency, typically NDC used to win it. The MPP picked it one time in 2016. Then they unfortunately, Honorable ACN was not able to retain it. It is those type of constituencies that when you win, it means that at the party level, a decision has to be taken that you are devoting resources to undertake development in those areas. Because the results tell you over the years that the people actually don't like your party, or there are more individuals who like the MPP in those areas.
This narrative plays out as well in Dom Kwabenya in two ways. A candidate will benefit from the state of affairs, internal state of affairs of the party. So the MPP had their own issues in Dom Kwabenya. That's clear. With Sarah Joasafo not going again, and she having a strong control over the most populous areas in the Dom Kwabenya, the Taifa areas, and the Christo Asafo element in that particular constituency. Her father is like a god, you know, in that constituency. You cannot win that constituency without going to pay homage and as well get the support of
I mean, I've heard those who have said that if she had contested.
Community, absolutely.
You know, they said if she had contested, they maintained that the MPP could have won the seat.
Could have.
Yeah.
All things being equal.
Yeah.
That is, if all the factors played out as we saw it. But then again, you saw the voter apathy in that constituency as well. There are many who have also attributed that level of voter apathy to Adjoa Safo not supporting Michael Quay Jr.'s bid. But did Michael Quay Jr. as well seek the support of Adjoa Safo going into 2024? Will they be able to patch up? And will Michael Quay Jr. be the one to lead the party going into 2028? Will Adjoa Safo seek a comeback? Will she be elected? That's another question for the MPP to answer. We can see the same here as well. That if the MPP as a party had a consolidated front going into this election today, would that's Nanakia Free have won this? If they correct their wrongs going into 2028 with all factors at play, would you say that they would show up again in 2028 to win? Or the NDC now would say, you know what, we are aware we have won this election with a slim margin of 209 votes, so let's make a significant showing in Ablekuma North by ensuring that there's some visible level of transformation that the people can see. And then based on that, they would retain and even increase the margin in 2028. Those are the questions that obviously is left with the two parties to answer. We're not going to pretend to have those questions coming in. Do you have those questions with your guest?
Do I have the answers to the questions? Is that what you're asking?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Oh no, I couldn't have those answers, but we'll see what our guests say, right? We'll start off with, I mean, who's to blame for this, for this loss for the NPP? This could have easily flipped the other side of the coin and been an NPP victory. But again, we've tried to diagnose the problem. Let's bring into the conversation now Professor Smasapon. He's a political analyst. He joined us earlier, if you've been with us since the afternoon. We're also joined by Dr. Jonathan Asante Ochre, who is also a political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. In the studio with me is Ebenezer Nimako Nyako, who is with EN Analytics. He's our data guy on this side of the table. But I'll start with my guest on the Zoom, since we haven't heard from you in this segment yet. And Doc, because you are just joining for the first time, let's hear from you. It's clearly the announcement has been made. The NDC has a win. The MPP, on the other hand, suffered a loss in Ablekuma North, obviously changing the dynamics in Parliament as well, particularly with the loss of Akwetia as well, a by-election in the making. I want to hear from you what your observations of the election today have been, first of all.
Well, let me say good evening to your viewers and to my friend on the other side, Sasmat Sapon. In actual fact, I think some few days back, whether on your platform or another platform, I said that the MPP was going to lose that particular seat. And it was not just because we have an increase in number in terms of the polling stations to about 19. The general dynamics does not in any way favor the fortunes of the MPP. And so you could see that there is that force from the national party itself, the party in government. Maybe I'll go there. But let me look at the general perspective of what happened today. I think that this idea of always visiting violence, whenever we are conducting by-elections, I think there is a need for us to nip that in the bud. It takes a lot from our democracy. We need to grow out of this. In actual fact, if you look at Ablekuma, apart from certain administrative advantage that may come with whoever was supposed to win, in actual fact, the NDC did not in any way need the Ablekuma to change anything. Should the NPP also win that, the only thing that they would use that to do is just bragging right. It will not change the dynamics in the parliament. So in actual fact, the stakes shouldn't have been that high. But because of the undercurrent, so it meant that people were well prepared to go for that particular rerun. And that is the unfortunate thing that has happened. Apart from that, I think that the elections went on smoothly without the usual glitches. But that being said, when it comes to the process, as I've always said, we seem to be one step ahead. This one, because it's just a micro kind of elections, coalition did not become a problem. In actual fact, the problem of Ablekuma, which is one of many, was as a result of coalition. Deliberate delay in coalition. That is the cause of the problem. And so this time round, of course, we have just a limited number, and that did not happen. But as I said earlier on, I didn't see how Madam Ewurabena was going to win this particular by-election.
At all,
But
despite
I was
her
a bit worried.
48 votes, lead difference when they calculated the 262 polling stations prior to today. You still didn't see she was going to win. She was going to win.
She wasn't going to win. And it is coming from the central government. You know why? Every human being is a rational being. Every human being is a rational being. You do not expect, what is it called? Ablekuma is part of Ghana. What are they seeing? We are witnessing a situation where fuel prices have gone down significantly. We are witnessing a situation where those who are doing business, we need to ensure that those things, will work on that. Generally, we have bad roads. So if you have these economic indicators that, we are witnesses of within the economy, and don't also forget the scandals, the oral thing that they are doing, investigating here and there, MPP is no longer at the moment an attractive party. They are no longer attractive. And so you do not expect people who are rational beings, seeing that the previous government has been very reckless, they will vote against you. But of course, there are people who are dying in the whole MPP. You can't do anything. And definitely they will always want to go and vote for their party. And I have said time without number that there is no way the MPP or the NDC can win outright victory one term or one time without the support of floating voters, not aligned, undecided, those crop of people who on the spur of the moment they just take their decision and they vote. For them, they don't know anybody. All what they do is probably their businesses, and they want to see that their businesses are what? Progressing. And the little things that they do in terms of the money that comes into their pocket, they're able to do A, B, C, and D, and they're able to save some. These people don't know anything. They don't align themselves with any political party. So you need those categories, demographics, you need them. If you don't get them, you're not going to win outright victory. And when you find yourself in government and people become apathetic against you, that will also not inure to your benefit. It will always inure to the benefit of the opposition. And that's exactly what transpired. But it has become worsened by the fact that these economic indicators that I mentioned are positive economic indicators that in any way keeps the goodwill that Ghanaians are having for the NDC.
I see.
And especially the president and vice president. That goodwill is very huge. And unfortunately for the NPP, the current leadership of the NDC, under the leadership of President Mahama, they just don't want to make unpardonable mistakes. They don't want to make that. So they always want to paint themselves before they act. And that's especially what we are seeing in the second coming of the president. So that goodwill is there. So all these things, and the lady saying that she has the, tacit support of the National Party, they are all behind her. Definitely there's that unity. And the fragmentation that we are seeing in the NPP with respect to, oscillating, not knowing whether they are supposed to contest or they are not supposed to contest. The General Secretary's authority over the party is no longer there. And all of those crop of people, they just have to clear all of them. The NPP needs the type of secretary like maybe Kobne Japan.
I see. We'll come to that, Doc. We'll come to the call for a change in leadership of the NPP in a bit. But let me bring in now Professor Sapon, because Prof, I want to find out from you. I am hearing over and over again the current conditions, the current economic conditions. Life seems better now than 6-7 months ago, and it could have played a role in the loss the MPP suffered today. What do you think? Does this hold true, in your opinion?
Yes, it is true. It is true. The general calmness in the economy, the general stability, and the inflationary issues my brother Jonathan spoke about, and Jonathan has been a while, trust you are doing well. Those are not things that the citizenry can overlook. They are real, and so it will play out. So if you remember in the afternoon, I was saying the message Ewurabena would have gone round with ahead of 2024 will change entirely. Now the platform would be for her to just reiterate the successes the government has achieved, which she should have been part of, but perhaps for one or two reasons she's out of parliament and all those things. Her message would have changed entirely and would center around the achievements of the president so far. And so it is true, and like I said, it's a city constituency, and they relate with this issue of inflation. They relate with economic indicators. They relate with exchange rates, those things. So businesses occur there, Chekodoko, those areas. The spare parts at Abosokai has spillover effects over there and all those things. So they relate actually with the issues with the economy and all those things. And if you ask me, the successes of the current government played a very significant role in her victory, even though it was close to call and the government would have visited the full horse of the party on the constituency and all those things. I think her story was so simple. Her campaign was made so easy for her by the achievements of the president in the first 7 months of the government. If it had been the other way around, she was going to suffer for it. So definitely she benefited from the success. And it is bare. Everybody can relate with it, especially a city constituency like that, where they understand what exchange rate does, inflation and all those things. They don't see it as theory. They practically feel it because they deal with those terms almost on a daily basis.
I'd ask, what should this loss mean for the NPP? What should it be telling them?
Well, the decision, as I said, the decision not to take part in the election was not too right, because political parties, as I keep saying, are election-driven machines. In our democracy, you have to participate in one election or the other to decide the next step of the way. So they should learn to participate in all elections, irrespective of the likely outcomes that would be. I know by now they are in the rooms discussing the way forward, especially for the election ahead, criteria and all those things. Participating in elections like this would have served as dress rehearsal.
QuickBooks gives me the superpower to automate my invoices, track expenses, and get paid fast.
Enhance getting into the next election. So I know by now they will be thinking about the next election, but I mean, I'll plead, irrespective of the likely outcome, they should learn to participate in all elections, because our democracy, you don't move on to the next level if you don't participate in 1 or 2 elections. As for the near absence of unity among the leadership of the party, I'm sure they know, and some of us keep saying it. Jonathan just mentioned it. Many have mentioned it. And we are not the ones to perhaps lead that process of unity. But it is so true that if you want to rely on your die-hard supporters alone, you are never going to be successful in any elections here in Ghana. You remember President Kufuor, there's the second coming, the one he won over President Mills. There was, I mean, some appreciable level of unity in the party at that time, the NPP at that time. But it still had to take the Great Alliance, the coming together of other political parties to join the NPP in order to cross the 50% mark. CPP had to join, I think PNC and Co had to join the Great Alliance. So the party and its members alone cannot win elections. So the unity is key to bring together the party and its members. And then it must be appealing, the party beyond the unity must be appealing to the floating voters, so-called. And it is only then that you are able to win election. And this is also true that they need to take lessons from and then do everything they can to speed up their unity process.
I see. I'll take the same question to you, Doc. What should this be telling the NPP?
Well, they should pinch themselves and get the understanding that they are no longer in government, and they should conduct themselves as a party that is in opposition. To be in opposition is to regroup, learn some lessons. You know, you should have the benefit of hindsight, and that is exactly what Mr. Mahama did. So I always say that Mr. Mahama's loss in 2016 is rather a boon to him. He has become a much better leader than if he had won in 2016. Maybe he would have made or continued with those errors that he was accused of. But the MPP need a change in direction. Look, the type of opposition that they are undertaking now is not worth it. You can look at the belligerence of Mr. Afenamakis. It's not really working. The authority of the General Secretary is in question, it is in doubt. They need a kind of direction in which the person who speaks will exude confidence in the people. And you see, it is, if you are in opposition and you do not get your act right, the followers wouldn't want to obey you. They wouldn't want to obey you. And once you exude that confidence, then it means that you are always going to be fair and firm. I don't see that in the General Secretary. I don't see that in the General Secretary.
But I mean,
unfortunately,
I mean, side note, Doc. If the opposition in Parliament, the leader of the opposition in Parliament, if he or she is not belligerent, then what good is that opposition? It would seem that is the opposition's default behavior, that there is some level of belligerence in order to get the machinery of Parliament going.
Well, it's not a contest, my dear Kamini. It is not a shouting contest. It is a contest of ideas. You see, every now and then people will be comparing the former Swami MP, what is the name? Chairman Sabonsu. I mean, if you look at the style of leadership and that of Afeni Markins, there is a vast difference. There is a vast difference. And
I see.
maybe he will grow out of that. I mean, take for example, the president says that in 14 days he's going to have his cabinet. 14 days was not due. And then Afeni Markins was criticizing the president that he's not constituted his cabinet. How necessary was that? That is not a constructive way of criticizing the government. You see, and unfortunately for the NPP now, the NDC under President Mahama, they are not making those unpardonable mistakes. We are not hearing of scandals. That in itself does not augur well for the opposition. And that is the more reason why they will have to sit down and come up with proper program that will, sit well with the people, because now the NPP is not attractive. And as we go along, the government, through the Attorney General, keeps bringing out scandals upon scandals, those who are negotiating, those who are pre-bargaining behind the scenes and all those things. These things do not augur well for the party. And that will mean that Ghanaians wouldn't want to change their mind about the NPP for now. And so I'm of the view that there are some people who have tried to become presidential candidate of the NPP, who themselves can occupy solid positions within the party that will ensure that the party is run well. Governor Japan has tried on several occasions to be the presidential candidate. It's not working. But when he became the secretary, it was a different thing altogether.
Right.
You see, so they need the likes of Governor, Mr. Into, something of that sort. I've forgotten the other name. You see, the other man whose brother died, Ejako. I've heard that people are suggesting that he takes the position of chairman.
Very well, Doc. Don't take us too ahead in the conversation, because the next leg is for us to discuss the current executive position on the just ended elections, and how it impacts the calls for their removal, the contest that is ahead of them, and by that I mean the presidential candidacy contest, and then also the national executive contest. We'll come to that, so hold your horses. Let me come into the studio and talk to Ebenezer. Eben, when you look at the entire 281 polling stations like you've asked us to do, where are the areas the MPP should be working on from now till there is another election in Ablekuma North?
No, I think the data, I don't have the result of
the polling station by polling station.
So I will speak
about the 19?
Yes, the 19 and then the general constituency. Now, you look at the turnout of the 19. Okay, so you are talking about 43, 44% in that range. So, as the other speaker said, there is this general apathy, and 43% is one of the lowest.
I understand your microphone is off, unfortunately. What we are going to do now is I will continue the conversation with Prof and Doc over Zoom, and then we'll fix the microphone challenge. Or perhaps it is now. Let's try you again. So you were telling us that in looking at the general constituency, what are the areas the NPP should be working on?
Yeah, so I was saying that because we don't have the polling station results, just apart from the 19 that was, but for the entire, it's difficult to know. And then before you can do the comparison, you need the historical data as well to know that, okay, this particular polling stations have been voting for the NDC or for the MPP. And so we have to zoom in this. But you can have a bit of the general direction of the constituency. If you take 2020, you see the curve, there was a bend in the curve. And those
what do you mean by there was a bend in the curve, since we can't see any curve?
Okay, so what it means that the gap between the NPP and the NDC began to close. And so it was not peculiar to Ablekuma North.
Right.
Ablekuma West, and all the Ablekuma constituencies, most of the constituencies in Greater Accra region, there was a sense that they were in places where NPP used to do extremely well. There was a sudden shift whereby the gaps were closing. And you see the swings. If you look at the swings, some were closing at a very faster rate, which could have told the party, those who were in charge of data, that if the trend that emerged in 2020 continued, it was more likely that we were going to lose a lot of seats in 2024. So the signs were already there in 2020. And so what we are seeing is just a continuation of the 2020 direction. But as I said, 2024 was more or less the culmination of, it's like a political shock. Okay, that hit the country. Okay, so we are now going to see it will take time for the dust to settle and the noise within the electoral space to settle for us to know actually which direction now the voters really want to go. Because as we speak now, it is difficult. For example, in the 2024, the region that was dissatisfied most with the NPP was Bono, not even Bono East. And Bono was the region that NPP has won historically. But for the first time, Bono was, if you rank the regions that were the most dissatisfied, it was the Bono region, followed by Greater Accra. And so it is not limited to Ablekuma North.
Right.
It was a general trend. And so the managers of the party should have seen that from the 2020 data, this is what is emerging. And then they could have just worked on it. But what I would like to say is that I think one of, when Blair was talking about, there has been this repeated phrase that our supporters didn't come to vote. And I think we need to address that one a bit. Okay, so there are two statements within that what Dr. Bawumia made and what Nanekuya made. It is a fact that averagely about 2 million people who voted for the NPP in 2020 didn't vote for that party in 2024. That is a fact. But I think what has to be addressed is why, the why. Why the drop? I don't think so far anybody has talked about that.
Would you have the answer to that? Why?
No, I think Ghanaians are better judges of the why.
While you're on the subject of why, I want to go back to Zoom now, because I do have the same question for our political scientists over Zoom. And Prof. Smasapon, I'm coming to you with this one because I want you to, you see, if the situation is because people are apathetic towards the election because the MPP fails them, there has also been the admission that there has been some semblance of stability. Can you hear me? There has been some semblance of stability since the NDC came. Now, if that be the case, why will an election where we expected some, in fact, nearly 7,000 people, 6,839, but only 2,995 turned out to vote under 50%. What explanation do you have for this situation that we are seeing in the Ablekuma North election?
Well, I think generally runoffs or by-elections do not attract a lot of people. I mean, the euphoria with the general elections do not come with by-elections and runoffs. So even though 2024 we saw a very low turnout, this one is a worse situation than 2024. And largely it is because the enthusiasm is down. People are fed up, people are out of the mood, that euphoria. So it is characteristic of all by-elections and, I mean, lower level, micro level elections. You can talk about the district assembly level elections and all those things. Those micro level elections, I think, generally do present a case like this. But then whether it is MPP supporters who do not come out to vote or otherwise, I think it all boils down to the work of the political parties. One is to serve the people and make sure you meet their, basic needs. You may not meet all of their needs, but some strategic needs that will make them stick with you would have to be carefully assessed and actually met. My brother in studio was talking about Bono and some other regions that did not show up their usual way. Partly, if the party should take a stock, they perhaps will come across one or two instances where they could have responded to those people who demonstrably, year on year, show them some love. I remember some time ago, in a situation like this, I suggested on one of our radio shows that the government of the day should try and satisfy at least the seats, the MPs and the constituencies who have shown them some good. So, for example, if this advice is going to NDC, they currently have over 180 seats. My advice would have been that these are people who queued to show you some love. Don't come and use rhetorics and mere promises and you sit and you see the time running, and it will just be a product of assurances, rhetorics, and all those things. When the 4 year is up, they won't show you same favor. And politicians must learn from these things. The argument Alfred and the in-studio team were having in respect of considering Ewurabena for perhaps some good position, and then Madam Akorogo of Kwabenya and those. It is not just an in-studio conversation. It is something politicians must take it serious, because, these are people who have shown you some goodwill. It's not like a regular seat. Even your regular seats, if you take them for granted, you do not keep your promises to them, basic things, water problems, network connectivity, electricity extension, you just go to the constituency, you keep assuring them, you don't act on them. Perhaps you may lose the goodwill and the favor they show you. So, yes, political parties must take the electorates a little more serious. And then if they happen to show you the goodwill and the favor, you do your best to keep the promises. It may not be up to 100%, but you must make significant impact in the constituencies that, especially those that voted for you. I'm aware that Ghana is a unilateral state. I'm not saying government should develop some areas and leave out some areas. But when it is getting to the political season, governments now get they now remember that they are a political institution. So yes, while you try to satisfy the entire Ghana, try and be mindful of the promises you have given to some specific constituencies and keep them. If not, you may gradually be losing their confidence in you.
I see. Doc, is the apathy only attributable to the fact that this is, well, a mini election, so to speak, just as Prof. Masapon described it, and the fact that during mini elections, it's normal for there to be this level of apathy? Is there all there is to the apathetic turnout for today's rerun?
Are you with me?
Yes.
Hello, Kamini.
Yes, can you hear us, Doc?
Sometimes your...
I apologize. I'll try again. I apologize. Let me try again. I'm asking. I'm asking if the apathetic turnout that we saw today can only be attributable to the fact that, look, this is a mini election and it's normal for mini elections to have such low turnouts.
Well, of course, it is it doesn't come with the euphoria that surrounds the general elections, in which, of course, we have the presidency at stake, and the various constituencies at stake as well. The euphoria that surrounds the presidential elections equally have influence over the parliamentary elections as well, and so I'm not surprised that that is the kind of thing or the scene that we saw today.
I see. Now let's talk about the leadership, because prior to now, we have seen or heard calls for the leadership of the NPP to be changed. In the course of those calls, the party then, there were announcements that they would have their, the ticket race before even they have change of national executive leadership. Of course, those dynamics are still out there. But I guess what I'm driving at is, and maybe I should come with Eben with this one before I come to you, Prof. and Doc, because I want to understand, if we are saying that part of the reason the loss happened is because of the flip-flop of the MPP coming on the back of the announcement, we'll be part of the election, we won't be part of the election, we are going to court, and the failure of the leadership to show as much interest in this as the NDC did could be responsible for this. We have also said that it complicates the already shaky table at which they sit. Now, talk to me about what this loss should be telling those leaders at this time. How is it likely to impact their own numbers if they show up for elections again for their party?
Okay, so no, I think within the NPP...
Is a question meant for me, Grammy?
No, not yet. It's for Eben here.
Yeah, so I think within the NPP, they will be soul searching. So, I mean, definitely the party hierarchy, the NEC, they will sit down and then brood over the outcome of these elections. And I think they will examine all the steps in the way. And then I think that at the end of the day, they will find a way to I think the NPP has gone through this cycle before. Okay, but just that this time it appears that the level of organization that you require is not there. I mean, after 1992 elections, you realize that the party found a way, when they said they were not even going for the elections, they found a way to organize. After the 2008 defeat, they found a way to organize. But what this time around, it appears that there is some sort of leadership crisis. And I think that the NEC has to come in and then ensure that at least a report will be issued, and then they will know. But the idea of
a report on the election?
Yes, there has to be a report, because it appears that there are people with, let's say, authority centers within the current party administration. Okay, and I think there should be a structure, and we have known the NPP for structure. Okay, when Kufuor was there, and from the 2000, I mean, it has been a party of structure.
Right.
And so it is one of the panelists said, the current state of the NPP is not that in a very good shape. And I think they have to work on it and ensure that there is that structure which warrants, which goes with every political party.
Well, Prof, is this the clearest signal yet to the NPP that it's time for the current leadership to go?
Well, you see, the one thing I know in politics is that everything is about interest. So let me start from that angle. Number one, the phase the MPP is in now is a regular phase most political parties do go through. You come from an election, you lose beyond your imagination. Everybody has someone to blame except themselves. And they make it look as if it was the responsibility of one person or two or three, some identifiable people to have brought about the win. If a win had come, you would have seen so many people owning the win. And so it's a phase. It's a phase. The only difference between the MPP and the NDC is that perhaps, and I've said it time without number, the NDC has a way of overcoming that phase faster. The NDC seems to build unity faster as compared to other political parties that we know. But I mean, one thing I know is that it's a phase political parties do go through. When you lose, you are the target. Everybody else is okay, apart from you. They forget that if win had come, all of them would have come and own the win. But loss do not have friends. It's win that usually have all the friends. So politics is about interest, like I said, and everybody would want to associate with a win, not a loss. Now, where the interest come in will perhaps be who substitutes who comes to take up the role of who. And the question is, if the person eventually comes to take up the place of, let's say, the general secretary or the chairman or whoever,
right?
Can the person survive? Can I go on?
Please go on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go on.
Please, can you hear me?
Prof, I can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. So the interest is involved. The loss is also part, but largely, I don't know whether it's because most of them were in for the first time. You take the chairman, for example, who has contested for the position for several times, gets the occasion to lead the team, and I mean, he wasn't much forthcoming, respectfully. I mean, compare Chairman General Sedun Ketia and Chairman Stephen Tim. You could see the mismatch. But then later we get to know that he hasn't been feeling well, and so perhaps you may have to reduce the level of demand you would have required from him. So, I mean, as for sickness, we all cannot demand so much from him if it's the grounds. But the top, chairman versus chairman, was largely a mismatch. The operation desk, which is the general secretary, Fifi Kwete was more undercover. My brother, Justin Kodria, did his best. When you come to the organizers, the youth organizers, I mean, take position by position, you realize that it appeared the NPP needed some more coordination as compared to what we are comparing the two major, respect to all the other political parties who participated. But I mean, these two can be compared. And so take the general secretary the first time, the chairman the first time, the national organizer the first time, all of them were kind of assuming those positions for the first time. They were entering for the very first time. Chairman General or General Chairman had been the General Secretary, part of the organization for quite a long time at the top, and then went on promoted to the National Chairman and all those things. So the experience that the NDC had at the top, respectfully, was not the same as the experience the NPP did have. If they should be given another chance, I am of the view that they would have learned from this lesson, grown, demonstrated much leadership, different or higher or improved version than what we see now. But it is the decision of the party to do the needed substitution, or if it is replacement or entire replacement, as will suit their next phase of the political journey. But trust me, it's a phase. Only that sometimes the NDC has a way of going around this phase faster, simpler than how the NPP usually do it. But
indeed,
I mean,
Prof,
this phase
Prof, you know, I'll just take you back a few steps. Indeed, I'll take you back a few steps, because your mention of the chairman balance, but more crucially, the chairman presidential candidate balance, or the national executive presidential candidate balance, just brings to mind perhaps that could be the reason the NPP wants to flip the situation or flip the script and elect their candidate or their ticket before the national executive election. Am I overthinking this?
Oh, you are right. Oh, you are right. I think largely that is what is informing the change in style, the top to bottom decision that the council, I think NEC or the council, went to decide. They feel that it will cure the issue of chaos in the party which is largely flag bearer driven chaos, to cure that. And then secondly, the presidential candidate, whoever will be elected, will get enough time to touch the base and do some preparatory work before the heat comes on. So those who took that decision perhaps have a good reason or reasons beyond these ones I've mentioned why that formula would help them. But largely you are right to think that it is some of these advantage, disadvantage analysis we are doing. Check the time President Mahama was elected to lead the NDC and the unanimous nature of his election. Very, very little chaos surrounded President Mahama's election to lead as flag bearer as compared to the MPP. And check the time he had to touch the base with his message and convince Ghanaians to turn to his way. I think some of these things forms part of the reason why they want to go the way they want to go, even though it has also been met with a lot of counter arguments. But
Indeed.
I mean, that's what it is.
Indeed, I want to come back to you shortly, but let's bring in now Doc. Is it time for the national executives to go? Will that cure the situation for the NPP at this time?
Well, that decision is for the delegates to take. But what I'm foreseeing is how this top-bottom approach will come with certain implications. Now, let's just say, for the purposes of argument, that the presidential primaries are done and that Aubyn wins. You know very well that traditionally it has been the bottom-top approach. And what has been happening is that those who have the desire to be presidential candidate will be interested in those who will be elected. At the branch level, they will have to show interest by financing them. At the constituency level, by financing some. At the regional level, they will be financing, and at the national level as well. And then they get to their elections itself. Because you know that those are the grassroots, the party foot soldiers occupying, the lower peripheries in terms of the positions. They don't have the resources. So they always see that as an opportunity to get something from those who are, endowed. And that is the presidential candidate. So when you do the top-bottom approach, you know what will happen? For the purpose of argument, Dr. Aubyn wins the primaries. The other presidential candidate will not show any interest in who becomes national, regional, constituency, and so on and so forth. Now, what that means potentially is that there could be a democratic tyranny that would have been established. Dissent will not be seen. Divergent views will not come out. You know why? Everybody will align themselves with Dr. Aubyn. And that in itself could mean that potentially those people who the delegate would have preferred to change, once they align themselves with Dr. Aubyn, he himself will equally want to show interest in especially ensuring that those who supported the likes of Kennedy Japan, the likes of Dr. Brian Champon, the likes of Dr. Duchu, those people, they will make sure that they don't win. So what is going to happen is that it is going to exacerbate the issue of apathy within the party. The structures of the party will not hold. And so that will mean that people are only interested in keeping to the flag bearership without building the structures of the party. And those who would have not won the presidential candidature of the party itself, they are equally resourced, they are very resourceful individuals within the party. Their people will be so apathetic because everybody believes that this turn-up of rules, right, this turn-up is tilted towards a particular individual. Because you're supposed to have had a new delegate to decide who becomes the presidential candidate.